All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I feel like a teacher now. My name is Harpaul Sambhi. I'm the CEO of Careerify. We are an HR tech company. We develop social media tools and all that stuff, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But let's talk a little bit about me. I'll tell you first off what's the bio that my executive assistant actually created, which is all flattering and all that stuff. I don't think those accolades actually really occur. It's all Kool-Aid, so to speak. And then I'll talk a little bit about the real me as well, because I think transparency is always key, and getting to know the real person is always appreciated. So, founded the company Careerify. It's my second organization in 2009. I'm a recent grad from Waterloo, electrical engineering in 2009 as well. So I started two companies in university, and essentially Careerify, what we do here is, like I said, we develop social recruiting tools. So we see the power of the Dale Carnegies and Jim Collins of the world that say, grade A people know grade A people. So if you're passionate about non-for-profit people, chances are those non-for-profit people will know other like-minded people. And what we do is we connect their social networks together so you're able to recruit more effectively and find the right talent so you can really show the brand saying, this is why I love working at that organization. So we've been doing it for the last 2 years. We have some really stable clients that utilize our technology and services, from the MTVs of the world, Transat Airlines. Just recently, Tim Hortons signed on. Woo, Canadian. And we have quite a few number of organizations that utilize our technology. Very fortunate to have a great company, a great number of people. And often my employees say that I'm the most useless cog in the actual organization, being the CEO. Simply because I actually don't do anything at all but talk, which I think is true. But that being said, we've won multiple number of awards in 2011 since we launched our technology, including top 25 startups in Canada, top 10 cloud computing companies by IDC, and most recently we won a Microsoft Innovation Award for top startup in Canada as well. So very fortunate to have that. And in addition to that, I have authored a book, Social HR. It came out in January of 2011, published by Carswell Thomson Reuters, where we had 2,300 organizations, including nonprofits, startups, Fortune 10 companies across North America and the world, saying, how does social media impact today's business, but more importantly, from a human resources perspective? So when we talk about onboarding, when we talk about recruitment, total rewards, diversity, we talk about leadership, retention, legal aspects, because we all know the pros and cons of social media and how it's growing so rapidly. So how you really tap into those networks if it is something that you want to use, and how do other organizations do the best practices as well. So a lot of the study that we're going to show you, some statistics and whatnot, and some of the 5 good resources and tools that I recommend have come directly from that book as well. And you're more than welcome to just pick up a copy at carswell.com or any of the local bookstores, so to speak, as well. I am very passionate in speaking. I love to speak in general. I've done the Canadian tour, I've done the US, and now I'm doing Europe. Speaking on human resources, IT, and last but not certainly least, entrepreneurship. Because I fundamentally believe this is how we're going to drive our economy out of the recession, and we need to empower people to get up, do their own thing, and start hiring as well. So that's a little bit about me. But that being said, I am an entrepreneur at the end of the day. And as an entrepreneur, I work hard. Waking up at 7 o'clock every single day, continuously, 99 out, working 20 hours continuously. And I fundamentally believe that we provide a lot of value, and particularly to me. So what we do is, for me, HR people talk to me and they say, hey, you don't annoy me at all. You provide strategy, you know social media and everything. And they say, Harpaul, you're an expert. You have a book, you have an HR tech company, you're doing all these different things. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not an expert at all. But they're like, yeah, of course. You're making a lot of money. You're doing this, this, and this. I'm like, no. Because the reason why I'm not an expert is if you look at Facebook, you look at LinkedIn, the Twitters, the YouTubes of the world, if you convert them into years in terms of children, they're about yay big, maybe, or this big, depending on how fast they grow. They're 7 years old. They're 8. If you look at Twitter, it's about 5 years old as well. So they're so fast. How could anyone be an expert in social media? I mean, sure, I'd love to have a PhD, but I don't think there's many PhDs in social media right now. And though I'm not an expert, I think I know 1 or 2 things about social media. So I'm more than happy to provide you my analysis on social media itself and how your organization can utilize it, because it's not going to be a silver bullet. It's not going to save you to recruit more people, or it's not going to be able to help you communicate with your end users, whether they're employees, whether they're donors, whether they're candidates or alumni or whoever you want to connect with. But that being said, it's a fundamental communication strategy that you definitely need to have. So that's a little bit about what we kind of do here. But I love to do an exercise. I'm relatively untraditional here, so I might go a little bit above the 25 minutes and then go back as well. But I love communication, so if you want to tweet, you can tweet ahead. Go ahead. But I want you to just take 15 seconds and just describe the first word that comes to your mind when you think about social media. So if you can write it down, that'd be great. I need Jeopardy music right now. Yeah, write it down. All right, I think that's 15 seconds. Any takers in just shouting out what you thought about social media, the first word that came up to your mind? Go ahead. Accessibility. Facebook. Connecting. Overwhelming. Overdose. Go ahead. Communication. Facebook. Facebook. That table? Facebook? Sorry? Yeah. Okay, yes, definitely. Comedian. Yeah. Blogging? Yes. Sharing. Okay. I'm not going to ask each and every one of you because it might take a long time. But that being said, we just proved a point here. A very, very vital point. So no matter how fast I talk, I want you to take this note only. Every single person has their own definition of social media. And that's what's unique about social media. Because just like every single person, every organization will have a different meaning as well. So what Canadian Breast Cancer will do for the social media initiatives will be different to what your organization does, conversely to the Ernst & Young's or to a startup as well. So not replicating your strategy, saying, hey, we need to do something like the Canadian Breast Cancer, the color thing, where they said, we'll talk about that later on afterwards. But you really need to look at your organization, see who your end users are, and connect with them. Because they may not be on Facebook or LinkedIn. They may be on RenRen because you're doing some outreach in China. Or they might be on Orkut because you're doing something in Brazil or India. So it's really pivotal to know where your end users are and how they actually engage itself. But let's talk about social media. We all know of it as the big four, meaning Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. But there's tens of thousands of social networks out there. And the study that we did with ComScore proved that there was well over 20,000 social networks with at least 250,000 people online. Because you're right, it could be blogging. It could be sharing in terms of videos. It could be rating, such as a TripAdvisor. It could be, the micromedia sites. It could be, location-based. It could be Twitter. It could be, crowdsourcing, commenting, so on and so forth. And there's a lot out there. So the fundamental thing that we recommend in social HR is to think about where your end users are and go where they are, because it doesn't make sense to do a Facebook strategy when half the people that you're trying to outreach to are not even on Facebook. Don't waste your time. Your time is valuable. Your resources are even more precious, right? So go where your end users are at the end of the day as well. And one of the biggest challenges that I had when I created social HR, so not only was I working 16 hours in a day for my company, I was working another 6 hours in just publishing the book and actually writing the book, and my girlfriend really hated me during that 6 months. But the biggest difficulty that I had was actually defining what social HR means. Because, like we just proved, each individual had its own definition. So what does it mean to an organization? And what we defined it, and it's a very broad definition, is it's an HR strategy that enhances your productivity in your organization through the use of collaboration, mass media, social media, and connectivity as well. Very, very broad. Because in reality, one can argue that what we're doing right now is a social network. We're all connected. We're all coming together to think of one or two interests, hopefully, it's not social media, then I don't know what you're doing here, but I'm kidding, it's networking. But that being said, you're here to actually learn about a different interest and here to connect with other individuals as well, much like what a Facebook is or a Twitter, but it's online and it's immediate as well. Some of the findings we had. 2/3 of organizations had no idea where they had to start. They looked at it and they said, okay, there's so much out there. Where do I begin? I might not use social media myself. My kids might be doing it on the dinner table. I think it's a lack of ROI. There's so many different things out there. Sometimes in the media, you might see that there's a loss of productivity. There's pros and cons to everything here, but you just don't know where to start exactly. And hopefully, through today's session, through the connecting to your peers that might be utilizing social media, whatever perspective they might be, whether it's recruitment, outreach, diversity, communication, and so on, and even the examples that I provide, hopefully can provide you with a little bit more direction. So what does social HR bring? It brings hope, or so I hope. That was kind of funny there. But nonetheless, what we really do is we help define strategy. Because, like I said, there's so much out there. So how does an organization go about creating a social media strategy? And that's what social HR does with the 2,300 organizations we were able to interview, looking at their failures and looking at their successes as well. We help you position, because we know sometimes the CEO or the person that's managing your fund may not actually see the return on investment. Or conversely, you may have to go to IT, depending on how large your company is. And sometimes IT just doesn't like doing things. So that being said, and I hope there's no one in IT here, by the way. But that being said, it is that process where you have to go out and actually fight for what you're looking for and fight for your cause. And we help you position that when you have to talk to management and or technical people as well. Help you create strategy. So we're looking at intrinsic and engagement, extrinsic engagement principles to really get that marketing message viral to your end users and get them involved onto social media, and looking at best practices on return on investment. So before I start going into the 5 ideas, I'd love to just actually show you what social media is. It's, at the end of the day, an evolution, much like the telephone evolution. So sometime in the 50s or 60s, sorry, I'm not that old, I did found the Fountain of Youth, but it is something where I still wasn't that old to go into the 50s or the 40s or whatnot. But the telephone evolution, for instance, is somewhat similar, where each individual employee would say, hey, wouldn't it be great to have a telephone on the desk of each of our desks to increase communication, increase whatever. And management will often say, we don't need a telephone on each person's desk. That will cause lack of productivity, where each individual will call their husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, mistresses, all of the other above, so to speak. But that's where, in hindsight, if you look 15 years after that, every single person had a telephone on their desk. Much like a fax machine. I don't know what a fax machine is, but apparently there was an evolution in that itself. And then finally, in the 90s, which is most common, which everyone can kind of relate to, is email. There was a lot of argument for a lot of organizations to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't want the chain mails where they have FW, 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 to FW in the subject line, where it just says, send this to 10 people and you get infinite good luck. How many remember those? There you go. It's a lack of productivity, they quoted. But how many have email addresses? Raise a hand. And there you go. Hindsight, 10 years later, every single corporation, every single employee has an email address. And that notion of loss of productivity is no longer there. There's always cons on that, obviously, because you can release IP, you can release, there's some productivity because you might, actually email your mistress and say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? But that being said, there's always the pros that always outweigh it. And the same thing is going on with social media. It is an evolution, but it's only going faster. Because by the time I finish talking in 2 hours, there'll be an additional 65,000 users on Facebook. Or conversely, if you look at LinkedIn, it'll be another 30-some thousand. And it's growing at a rapid pace. So organizations, whether you're a Fortune 100 company, non-for-profit, or startup, we're all struggling with it because by the time we actually finish stuff, it's continuing to evolve. And this is just a plain example of how technology is evolving over the last 5-10 years. Where this, by the way, will happen in the next couple of years, where you're actually touching stuff outside and your computer is going to be on your chest. This is actually happening at MIT. But in hindsight, like, how many of you guys ever dreamt of having a computer in your hand? Not many 10 years ago, but it's happening. You had one? Oh, wow. Evolution curve. There you go. There you go. My dad had one of those big GE phones, you know, the big mobile where you actually had to plug in the antenna, and the battery pack was actually bigger than the actual phone. I actually still have it. I just wanted to keep it as a yeah. They're smaller now. That's the point. So let's talk a little bit about the 5 principles of good ideas to think about. No in particular order, because I know it's in the handout somewhere that I'm going to probably talk in order, but I'm very unconventional, as you can kind of see. And at the end of the day, I used to really drive my professors and my teachers really crazy. So I'll do the same, and I'm going to talk about engagement. Now, engaging, you can talk about engaging your stakeholders, whether you're employees or whatnot, through intrinsic mean and extrinsic mean. And the blue bra stands for a few different things, and I'll talk a little bit about later, which is supporting a cause. So how many are familiar with the Canadian Breast Cancer Initiative on Facebook? Raise of hands. How many are not? Sorry. Let's just clarify. Okay. So basically what happened in 2010, I believe, for those, just in case if I'm a little bit accurate, just correct me. In 2010, Canadian Breast Cancer, what they said is, okay, we want to be innovative, we want to get viral, and we want to get every single person aware of what we're actually doing right now. So their cause is obviously to promote Canadian breast cancer across to both females and males, but how do you actually get males to pay attention to a particular cause? So what they did is they created a viral campaign on Facebook. They said, okay, females, create mystery, become secretive. What you're going to do is every day state the color of your bra, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less, and you're not going to say any word to anyone else, and that's all you're going to do. So for a month of, probably a span of 1 month or so, you would see blue, yellow, lacy red, nothing. I don't know about that. But you could see a whole bunch of females just starting to comment over and over again of their various colors. And one day I couldn't take it anymore, because I asked them, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you just randomly saying a color? So 5, 6 days later, I actually said blue. I got chastised by all my females on my Facebook because they think I was wearing a blue bra, but it is what it is. But what it caused me to do is, through social media and through the effect of getting that viral reach, it made me actually research what the heck is going on. Why do people I Googled it, like, what are these colors on Facebook that females are writing? And lo and behold, I saw Canadian Breast Cancer, their initiative, their cause, and I actually was able to read up on it. Powerful, because they had millions of Canadians doing it. And that's how you can utilize intrinsic engagement to really get that, because you guys are special in the sense that you are supporting a cause, whether it's for poverty or for international development or whatever that individual need is, whether it's healthcare and so on and so forth. You can actually get people moved intrinsically because they care about it. So it's not really necessarily if you want to have hire someone, you just post on a job on your Facebook page saying, hey, we're hiring for a job. That's not going to work. That's a job board. Use Craigslist or I forgot the non-for-profit one. Charity Village, yeah, there you go. You can use those, but you have to be innovative to actually outreach and get those people involved through intrinsic ways. Some other ways that you can actually do this, and this is all outlined in more detail in social HR. We actually have 2 chapters on actually engaging your end user, is through innovation. So whether you're an innovative company, you might be doing something cool with like maybe an Apple or a Google or whatever it might be. Get them involved, because those are your stakeholders that you could kind of bring in and get people interested in your cause itself. It could be through learning and curiosity. So if you're doing something in terms of really learning, innovative learning, and saying, hey, this is how you set up a non-for-profit, so you can get those future aspiring entrepreneurs that want to do something in the social sector to start following you on Twitter, or to start looking at your YouTube videos or whatever it might be. That's the way you kind of go towards that as well. Or you can create a challenge and competition, because everyone loves to play lotteries, watch sporting events and whatnot as well. So we all have that intrinsically that moving factor to say, hey, I want to do bigger, better. I want to win my sister or brother because they beat me up all the time in the morning or back in the day. But they love those challenges and competitions as well. And conversely, in terms of engaging extrinsically, there's several ways that you can do this, including recognition. So whether you're talking to your donors and you say, hey, this is the person that donated the most amount of money, or conversely, it's an employee that we wanted to connect with and they did an outstanding job, everyone loves to be recognized. They love the pat on the back. And to utilize social media where they can be recognized amongst their peers and other people just elevates that level more and more. Performance evaluations. We've seen some companies do this where if they don't participate in social media, they would actually take some marks off in their evaluation. We don't recommend you to do that. But that being said, you can actually promote it as extracurricular activity as well. And we'll talk about decentralizing and centralizing to get that early approach there. And you might want to do incentives and discounts. So if you're connected to a customer or to a donor that has box tickets to the Toronto Maple Leafs or to whatever it might be, that's something that you can actually leverage to get your motivation done and get people involved and engaged on your social strategy. So that being said, I want to lead you guys into a secret. I have actually found why Generation Y is called Generation Y. Who here knows why Generation Y is called Generation Y? Comes after X. That's what I thought too. But this is the real reason. It's clear this is why Generation Y is called Generation Y. But let's go on to mobilizing your employees. So let's speed it up a little bit. How do you get your employees involved? Let's look at the social sphere and see how impactful organizations are actually connected, because we see maybe you have 25 people involved in your organization, or maybe it's 100 or 1,000, it doesn't matter. We're all really connected into that inter-world. It's no longer the actual Rolodex on our actual desk anymore. It's through emails that we have a Rolodex. We all have maybe the Outlooks or whatever it might be. That's where we're storing every single contact. We might have Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. And from this perspective alone, we did a study just from a recruitment perspective, but it can be utilized elsewise as well, where of the companies that utilize our technology, we found that we surveyed a sample size of 630 people of the maybe 30 or 40,000 people that use our technology right now. And we found on average each person had about 316 connections. So what does it really mean to you? Meaning if you're able to connect with 100 users, you're hitting close to 31,000 contact points. If it's 500, 1,000, 4,000, you're hitting more and more people continuously. And that's a huge benefit of social media. It's real time, it's transparent, so we'll talk about transparency as well, but at the same time, it's viral reach. You don't have that reach back in the day when we were doing through emails or through snail mail or whatever it might be. It's all real time and impactful. So you really want to kind of leverage your networks, whether it's your own internal employees, it could be donors, it could be whatever it might be, and we could talk a little bit about that in the Q&A as well. So you really want to maximize, and this is just the solution of what we have, but really maximize and grow your employment brand if it's from a recruitment perspective, or if it's from a diversity or communication perspective, you really want to connect with those individuals as well. And this is just an example of what recruitment is all about. So, our technology, for instance, organizations, and like for Careerify, when we're hiring, instead of posting online, we're actually, just broadcasting jobs right away, and it's getting alerted to my fellow engineers on my Facebook page, for instance, because like-minded people know like-minded people. Or conversely as well, you can start to use intrinsic and extrinsic rewards to kind of really catapult people. And internally in Careerify, what we do is we give away a trip for to Hawaii, and we give you free compensation for the whole entire week that you go to. And that's one of our ways to kind of engage employees. And though we are small, we get a lot of engagement and a lot of traction through that aspect alone. Or for instance, if you want to really go high and if you have a lot of budget, I don't know how many people have a lot of budget, but if you do have a lot of budget, you can kind of give away a car. We've seen companies do this, but irrespective of what it is, you have to really try to see what your employees or your external candidates are really engaged with, and you can get them involved with that as well. I kind of wanted to show this. I don't know if I necessarily have internet, but I recommend you to take a look at two different websites for a recruitment perspective. One is Deloitte, and the other one is FreshBooks. So Deloitte is obviously a Big Four company. FreshBooks is a startup So they had about $250. They were able to create this video. Take a look at them, and I do have a link here, but just type in FreshBooks hiring, and you'll see that on YouTube. They have well over close to 30,000 views, and they utilize a comic point of view to actually get people involved and say, hey, this is why you want to work for our organization. And Deloitte, here's an example of what they did. They created a Deloitte Film Festival, so it's a knockoff of Toronto International Film Festival or New York or whatnot. What they did is they asked all their employees to say, let's talk about you and let's talk about our brand. So relate you to the brand and actually create a video, something that could be serious or it could be something that's a comedic style, and say this is why you love working for the organization, if it is for recruitment, which in this case it was. So for Deloitte in 2007, they had 311 submissions, videos, where they didn't actually say, we're going to give you anything. We're not going to give you money. We're not going to do whatever. You're actually going to do it because it's a competition. So they had 311 submissions actually overall. And what happened was the employees were actually able to rate the best videos. They took the top 10 videos, which were free material. They were able to put that on their career website saying, this is why you would want to work at this organization, which is Deloitte in this scenario. And they were able to get free information, show real live people that were actually working there, and at the same time be able to have each individual broadcast this on their social network. Because if you look at it from a psychology perspective, most people love to be on TV. I know some don't. So if you're not one of those people, don't worry about it. But most people love to be on TV. That's why if you see on the news report at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever time you watch it, you'll see a whole bunch of people crowd behind saying, hi, Mom, that type of thing. It's the same idea, where YouTube is like a TV. So you're able to connect with these people and say, hey, this is where you get your shining, and you're able to say your 2 minutes of why you love working here, or conversely, it's something that's really goofy, which clearly Deloitte was able to do. Just this example alone, which I'm sure you can't really see, but there's 3 individual interns. They're actually doing a rap video of why they work at Deloitte. Yeah, and they were able to get 12,000 views, right, for free. Because they were in this video, they're able to shoot it off to Facebook, hey, check this out, friend, whatever. Their parents doing the same thing, their nieces, nephews, or their family members did the exact same thing, and that's how you get the viral approach. The winner was actually food for thought, where the senior partner was saying, the only reason why I'm in Deloitte is because of the food. So if PwC gave me better food, I would be over there. You had something called Recruitette, which is a knockoff of The Bachelorette. So anyone watch The Bachelor, Bachelorette, there's the video right there. You have Dude, Where's My? So it's a knockoff of Dude, Where's My Car, which is one of the movies back in the 90s or so. And then you had a variety of different things here. But it's you're giving the ability, the employee, to actually do what they want to, give them creativity, and these flip cams that they were able to give, they donated it back to charity and whatnot. So there was actually no compensation involved, but they had people creating videos. That's called engagement. And take a look at FreshBooks as well. That's, like I said, a startup as well, so it's not that big promo of what Deloitte does. It's a local Toronto startup that actually did a really good job in that aspect. Let's talk a little bit about decentralization. And I know I might be going over the 40 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever I might have, but I'm going to be ending very shortly. Decentralization, we all have that problem saying, hey, we might have to hire someone to do social media for us because we just don't get it or whatever. We'll talk about that later. But a lot of organizations have the perception of they have to hire another resource to actually manage these social networks. You don't. Everyone has, if your company blocks Facebook or LinkedIn out, on the work premise, I'm sure your employees have these things, these iPhones and BlackBerries where they're checking and they're tweeting and they're Facebooking already. So my concept, and this is where I go back away from the consulting point of view, is really if your employees are already doing it, let them do it because they're going to do it regardless. But have them check your Facebook or your LinkedIn and have them do what you want them to do. So you don't actually have to spend a whole day tweeting away. You could say to your tweeter, saying, hey, if you see someone that tweeted on our blog page or on our Twitter wall or our Facebook fan page, just update it, provide them with information so that you can deal with that, but you still get that engagement effect. And everyone loves immediate feedback. That's what the internet's all about. You go on Amazon, you want to click on one button, you bought the product. You go on TripAdvisor, you go on whatever, you buy stuff really instantaneously. You don't wait 2 or 3 days. And that's the same expectation that your end users have on the social world as well. They want immediate feedback. So this is one way a lot of organizations are starting to do it, though it might sometimes make sense to centralize your plans and your recruitment efforts. But that being said, you're able to do it. It really depends case by case, and we outlined that in social HR. But from a recruitment perspective, I thought Warner Brothers was a great example. They have 10,000 followers, and they provide advice. So going back to intrinsic, extrinsic engagement factors, they were saying, okay, let's go to the Wall Street Journal, let's go to the Globe and Mail, get that career section information, and send it off to my followers. We don't have to create the content, because a lot of people think you have to create. I would say about 10% of the internet actually creates. Everyone else is distributing, rating, liking, commenting, and whatnot. So you can be one of those. Just take that information, tweet it again, saying, hey, I thought this was interesting, and that's how you get people to follow you instead of just saying the normal cause of donate or hire me or whatever it might be. LinkedIn, they use that for headhunting. Facebook, they use it for internships because they see that 95% of Gen Ys actually in North America is on Facebook. YouTube, they post selected videos. And from a Warner Brothers perspective, which is a global organization, they were able to save 40% of their 2010 budget cost for job boards. And in 2009, they were able to save 85% of their outside agency costs, which is just phenomenal. And just to kind of give you an example, right here it says, had an awkward interview, share your story, 10 awkward interview moments and how to handle them. It's light, it's a purpose, right, to engage people. And it's very hot here, which I completely agree with you. And then, down, 5 or 6 tweets later, they say, hey, we need an event coordinator. We need to hire someone here. And that's how they get that 10,000 plus followers instead of the 200 that most companies are struggling to get up to. So just to go, and we'll talk a little bit more about this afterwards. In fact, let's talk about this afterwards because I want you guys to start to connect. Let's talk a little bit about exploration. Exploration, I personally think you should start with baby steps and grow bigger. Don't dive into social media right away. Diversify your technology tools. How many people have an ATS, applicant tracking system, on your careers webpage? I'll put my hand back down. I strongly recommend you to diversify your technology tools. Like I said, we're strapped for time. There's a lot of free resources out there that can manage your applicants, your whatever it might be. They're all free. Some of them are free services. Just start to automate yourself because that's something that you don't want to go. So for instance, if you want to use social media, I recommend utilizing a Hootsuite because that will update your Facebook, your Twitter wall automatically so you don't actually have to copy, paste. So you're able to utilize something like that as well. So diversify your technology tools. Utilize two-way communication and transparency. We're going to get back to that, of course, and discover ways to become unique. So how many of you know Groupon? Raise your hands. Great. So Groupon is a coupon website. What they did here is, you usually buy restaurants or whatever, spa packages and whatever. But what Groupon, or what this individual did is actually proposed on Groupon to Dana. I actually bought this, by the way, so I don't know if I'm actually engaged to Greg. My girlfriend would hate me if that would actually occur. But that being said, you're able to see that, tools that are not necessarily used for that principle are actually being, they're thinking outside the box to get their word and messaging out. And this is where you have to be creative in social media. Is even though Facebook may be a sharing tool that, you share your videos and all this stuff, you can be creative just like how Canadian Breast Cancer Society did the same thing. So that's why I'm trying to give you a context to frame a reference to say, step outside the box and see where your users are and how they're using it and see if there's any creative spin on that itself.